2. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, their stories, their lessons, put it down in a book, and share it with the many, ultimately changing their legacy and destiny in the process. And if you are an entrepreneur out there, I highly recommend you write a book because you will obtain clarity, self-awareness, and many opportunities. If you need help with any of that, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. And let's say you already have a book that's done. You want to use it to generate leads for your business. Check out bookmarketingcrm.com, which is part of the Million Dollar Book Agency. Now, you guys know I talk a lot about maybe self-awareness and clarity and getting to maybe get the best out of life. And I think AI and technology can absolutely be your friend. And it could also be your enemy, depending on how you look at it. But technology is going to change the game as it always has. And if you are not on board, you're going to be left behind. The book that we're talking about today is called Beyond Knowledge: How Technology is Driving an Age of Consciousness. And we have the author with us today, William Halal. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Hey, good to be here, Mike.
Let's start off with the genesis of this book. What made you want to write it? And if you can give a quick little glimpse of where you come from or what got you to this point, that would be phenomenal.
Well, I saw a few years ago that the technology revolution was doing something strange. It was introducing subjective thought, and now we see that as post-factual behavior. People can say and believe anything, really. The Trump phenomenon, for instance, a good example, and that's remarkable. I think it's not just a goof. It's a result of the digital revolution. Digital revolution has just spewed all of this information out there, and people have to make sense out of it. So they rely on their beliefs, their values, and so we have all of this subjectivity, and it could be anything. But the strange thing is that this may seem like nonsense, but it's really consciousness. It's the beginning of what I call an age of consciousness. Have been in the knowledge age for about 20 years. It started about the year 2000. I forecast that when I was a young professor in 1970s, and I was right on money. But the year 2000 came along, knowledge age. Everybody's talking about knowledge workers. Now that is receding. Knowledge is no longer enough. We've moved beyond knowledge.
I
We are
like that.
living
Yeah.
now beyond knowledge, and that means consciousness. It's not a good consciousness. It's a crazy consciousness. But we have to, the challenge is to change that consciousness into something that will create a sustainable world. And that's an enormous challenge. That's where the world is stuck. And I think business has a great role to play here. Uh, 40 years ago, my paper, Beyond a Profit Motive, won the Mitchell Prize, which included $10,000. That was a big deal. That'd be worth about $30,000 or $40,000 today. And that seemed like a wild idea at the time, but now it's here. It's here. The Business Roundtable announcement that declared shareholder primacy is no longer enough, that the interests of all stakeholders, employees, customers, and so forth should be taken into account. That's changed everything. 90% of corporations now practice some kind of ESG. I see that as a primitive form of democratic enterprise. That's what I see it as. And that could be a competitive advantage if we do this well. Let me stop there and let you speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, just looking at you're talking about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, right? So,
Yeah,
are you proposing that because of I agree, we went from the knowledge era, right? It's all about knowledge, who is the smartest. Well,
yeah,
now we have access to pretty much unlimited information with a computer.
exactly,
So
exactly.
now it does come down to, and maybe this, when you talk about consciousness, but is it morality and potentially I don't know, you can start to see the good versus evil pretty clearly. So that's the way I look at it. But um maybe not many people are talking about this, how we have gone from the industrial to the information age to now, I like how you put it, the consciousness
The age
age.
of consciousness. It's
That's great.
it's maturity. The planet is maturing. Civilization is maturing. We have this enormous challenge of dealing with climate, autocratic threats around the world, more pandemics, enormous inequality problems, I think, enormous. And it just goes on and on. There's a sense among most people that I talk to of doom. They feel we are doomed. There are surveys that show that something like 50, 70% of young people think we're doomed. Civilization is doomed. That's how bad it is. And business, I think, has an enormous role to play here because business is the most powerful institution in the world. And if business people could face up to this challenge, they could lead the world out of this mess. And it's not doing good. That was the old social responsibility stuff. That doesn't cut it because that's just philanthropy. It doesn't deal with the competitive marketplace. But now I think we should see the role of stakeholders as a resource. And business people, the ones I know who are leading this, they collaborate with their stakeholders to solve strategic problems that create value for everybody. Everybody benefits, including making more money for shareholders. It's an enormous change, but it's just beginning, just beginning.
I truly believe that the remedy for everything is think like an entrepreneur. And I like how you say
Yeah.
that business is the way out. I believe the same thing. Now, our philosophy on what they should do and what they should might be very different across the board for everybody, but business, entrepreneurship to me is the way out for everybody. It's if you think like an entrepreneur, you can win. Wherever there's chaos, you can go in there and you could solve the problem the right way, in my opinion, and reap the rewards. So there are a few people out there who I think are doing a great job in using business. I believe they have more power than the politicians. Do you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah, I fully agree with that. The
Yep. And
politicians are confused. They follow. They follow the public. They're following now, they're just following the public.
right. So politicians, and I look at them as sort of those people are controlled by maybe the people behind them or the people with the real money, right? And whether it's the Black Rocks or whatever, these people who have the real money, they pull the strings. I
Yeah,
do see people, and I want to see where you stand for individuals, but somebody who has really changed the game when it comes to the environment and socially uh, is Elon Musk. Now, I don't know what you think of him, but when it comes to business, I look at him saying, you know what? Everybody was pushing for environmentally friendly cars. He's the first one to do it against the politicians, against the big corporations. So you got to commend him. Even though I'm not a Tesla guy, I don't have a Tesla car.
yeah.
I look at Elon, I say, well, he's the first one to do it. And then when it comes to social structure, he did buy Twitter just to give people free reign, which then he to, and it does go to the G in it, governance, self-governance. So what are your thoughts on Elon Musk?
Well, he's a genius, no question about it. And you're
No
right.
doubt.
He has led the way towards sustainability. The Tesla, and now and he's way ahead of where we should go. He advocates heat pumps to replace gas furnaces in homes. He's exactly right. Um, he's got a lot of great ideas. He's a little wacky, I think, in some
He's a
ways.
big kid, right? Don't you think? He's a big kid with unlimited
Yeah,
resources.
yeah. I
I like
mean,
that.
I think he's overdone it with X, formerly Twitter. He it really showed his limitations because running a social media platform is not like building rockets. It's dealing with people, and he didn't know how to do that. He got into big trouble doing that. I read the book, The Breaking of Twitter. It's wonderful. He didn't understand how to deal with the the subscribers to Twitter. He got into big trouble doing that, which showed his limitations. But you're right, he's a genius, and guys like him are leading the way. I think that's true.
And so when it comes to the qualities that he has, right? In order for business to be the real solution for this world, you need to have people like him that have the courage to put themselves out there. I like the fact that he can't be bought. I love people like that, right?
Yeah.
I've always said in order for me to get into politics, I need to be an individual who has unlimited resources because I don't want to be swayed. So do you commend that about what he's doing at least? Do you look at people and say if they can't be bought, maybe they have some type of a leg up?
No, I agree with that. That's absolutely true. But let's get back to the role of the corporation. I really think business people have an enormous opportunity here. They could become heroes. Right now, if you talk to most people, they have such a negative view of business. They think they're greedy, self-serving,
Yes.
destructive. It's terrible. And that's because of this legacy of focusing on the bottom line. And the Business Roundtable has freed them from that now. They now can start working with all their stakeholders to solve problems. So be entrepreneur. That's the heart of entrepreneurship, solving problems. And they could become the heroes, the people who pull all this together into a more productive system that serves everybody, including the environment, climate change, all of that. And they could make as much money as they need, more than, I mean, why do they need uh, hundreds of billions of dollars? I mean, that's really kind of excessive, I think. People get a little uh, uh, aghast at the incomes of like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk make as much as about 150, the GDP of about 150 countries. I mean, it's a little excessive, I think. They could make more than they need, but they could be heroes by pulling all this together. They could lead the way and be a competitive advantage. This is not social responsibility. This is cooperation. And collaboration is one of the most badly needed things today. We don't recognize the value of collaboration. We need collaboration so badly in a world that is interdependent. It's all tied together. And in an interdependent world, you have to work together to solve common problems, not out of altruism, but because everybody benefits. You benefit. It's self-interest, enlightened self-interest.
Mm. So I had a wake up call. I guess you could say 2016. That's when I started to see things, I believe, as they are rather than what I was told. But there was a real wake up call in 2020. And I think maybe what you're saying really does tie into individuals started to get in touch with themselves. Who are they? What do they really believe? Who do they want to surround themselves with? What
Yeah,
do I want to do for the rest of my life? This consciousness, in my opinion, really started to take form 2020. And it was almost like the allegory of the cave from Plato, where
yeah.
people escape the cave maybe for the first time. Like, whoa, this is what's really going on? Wow, I feel lied to. Do you agree with me that maybe 2020, with that breaking point, that is the precipice of people kind of finding their way through this age of consciousness?
I think you are exactly right. Something very critical happened in 2020, the insurrection on the Capitol. That was a stark uh, reminder that we're living beyond knowledge. That this had nothing to do with knowledge. This was, frankly, it was a lie. It was a lie, and a third of the country or half the country believes in this. So we're in an age of consciousness now, but it's not a good consciousness. We've got to change consciousness, a global consciousness, and business people can do that by changing economic consciousness to help us realize that the corporation is more than just making money. It runs a socio-economic system consisting of stakeholders. In fact, I've got a really interesting project underway. I have some graduate students we're going to model the corporation as a socio-economic system, all the stakeholders, their interactions, their costs, benefits, and we want to depict the reality of the corporation as this broader system so people can see it for what it is and manipulate it, play with it, see what happens when you change different variables. I think that's really exciting project.
So yeah, 2020 and January 6th, I think what you're
Yeah,
referring to before was 2021, January 6th, 2021.
right, right.
I think 2020, whenever you see individuals like where forced vaccines, right, to keep a job, masks that are being forced on people to go in and
Yeah,
buy
yeah.
groceries, kind of felt weird to the average person, right? But they're like, what is going on? Why is this happening? You talk about even the election. There's so many asterisks next to that election whenever everything's shut down at 3 in the morning in many states, including Pennsylvania, where I'm at. It really woke people up like, what is happening? Something is strange things are afoot in this year. Me personally, I think there's a lot going on. Do you think that's when people started to say, well, the hell with this job, the hell with this direction, let's go into this direct? Do you think because of all that chaos, it was
Well,
a ground zero moment that really woke people up for the first time they were like, latest, what am I doing? So do you think in the grand scheme of things, do you believe it was a blessing for many?
Absolutely. You know, like the great resignation. A third of employees still don't go into the office. They can't get them back into the office.
That's crazy.
We've talked about telework for 20 or 30 years. The pandemic made it real. People decided, I'm not going to go into the office. I can do my job just as well here in my home. And they can't get them back into the office.
That's true. Yeah. That's
You're
something we
exactly
needed. I
right.
know it helped us out because I do everything via Zoom, but it really helped people adopt new technology and maybe they start to use technology more efficiently than ever because of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think I'm so glad to hear you focus in on the year 2020. I think that's exactly when we started the age of consciousness. It's a hard idea for people to grasp, and many people get confused by it. They don't want to think about it. But that's always true when you have anything different. Uh, Going back to when I forecast the beginning of the knowledge age, like 1970, and I used to tell people, I think when this is when computers filled rooms, with big mainframes. And I will tell people, I think we're going to be using personal computers. And the typical response I would get is, why would anybody want a personal computer? They
Kidding
couldn't
me?
they couldn't imagine what that was like. That just shows how hard it is to understand big change. It's very hard to imagine. And that's what we're struggling with now. People can't grasp the changes underway now. And I think the key to see it is it's a global crisis, and we need a global consciousness to deal with that. And then the business people are I think leading the way.
No, you talk about this, I think, in chapter 7, from religion to spirit, the ultimate
Oh,
technology of
you read the
consciousness.
book.
Well,
Wow.
I'm looking at your book here. I have not read the book, but I'm looking at it. And I think that maybe if you could kind of share your thoughts on this, I believe because of technology, I do believe self awareness and self actualization is definitely more important now than ever because you can
Exactly.
be pushed around pretty damn fast.
Exactly.
And when you talk about humans being more depressed than ever, people are not happy,
Yes.
they're hooked on drugs.
Suicides are tops. They maxed out.
So, in my opinion, now this is, I am not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. I'm just kind of looking at it from a guy that's in entrepreneurship, and I see things and I kind of do a little bit of research. But I believe faith and religion is on the decline. And when that
Yes.
happens,
Yes.
people are saying, I have to be more reliant on myself rather than a higher power. Therefore, what does all this mean? I can't do it myself. And so when faith and spirituality decrease,
Yeah.
that's when depression increases because the human brain thinking that they are in control of everything is depressing, right? So I think faith is a must, in my opinion, for us to come back rather than rely on people or pills, rely on God. And I think that's a way out. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're right. There's a movement away from religion. I see it as, or this is what it's been called by many other people, spiritual but not religious. That's the new theme.
Good point. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
People are embracing spirituality, but they want their own spirituality. They want to choose where they get it. They could get a little bit of it from Catholicism, some from Islam, some from Zen Buddhism, wherever. They're figuring out their own spirituality, something that makes sense to them. But they're rejecting the dogma of the old religions. I think that's exactly true.
Now,
Yeah.
do you think that a way back to a healthy lifestyle is to have some type of, in the wheel of life, you need to have spirituality, right? You need to have it.
Yeah. But it's not going to be the old dogma. That's what's out, the dogma. I
Mm.
was raised a Catholic, and it's a wonderful religion, but I just can't buy much of the dogma. And I take my guidance from Catholicism, from Zen Buddhism, and to me, the spiritual world is a real thing. It's a real thing to me, and I have my own spiritual practices, and lots of other people are doing the same thing, I think. It's called cafeteria spirituality or something. But I think that's where we're going.
Yep. And so
Spiritual, but not religious.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic myself my whole life, and then I realized that I was closer to, I believe, I was closer to God whenever I started going to a non-denominational church. And I felt like I had a
Yeah.
relationship with Jesus and with God. So it was, like you said, maybe something happened. When I look back at Fulton Sheen interviews and videos of Fulton Sheen, are you
Yes.
familiar with him?
I remember him. Yeah.
I love Fulton Sheen. That's
Yeah.
it's standard practice Catholicism. Nowadays, I look at the Pope and I just don't see anything in regards to, oh, Jesus wouldn't say that. Jesus wouldn't do that. Fulton Sheen would not agree with what the Pope's doing. I think that a lot of the Catholic Church has been corrupted. Do you believe in that?
Yeah. The fact that they won't recognize the role of women is damning. And the fact that they insist on celibacy and all, and they won't recognize the role of contraceptives. I mean, most Catholics that I know don't agree with the church's position on all that stuff.
Wow. It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're seeing it too then, huh?
yeah, they're thinking for themselves. They still
Interesting.
love the church, but they don't agree with the official positions.
But attendance is dropping drastically.
Yeah.
AI is getting inundated into the everything, right? And so rather than think for themselves, I want to get to your perspective on AI. I believe it. I mean, I'm in this world. I play with AI quite a bit, and it's blowing my mind. If I only showed it to my dad and really showed him what's going on right now, and I'm
Yeah.
not even in the crazy rooms, right? I know people who they are working on 3D um, graphics of themselves, and if you went to a website or you went to a meeting, it's hologram. Like you wouldn't even tell the difference. It's that insane. So I believe with AI coming into our life, people are not thinking anymore. And I've seen some crazy things. So where do you see this going?
Well, I disagree a little bit, Mike. The net effect of AI is going to be to free us up from uh, the drudgery of routine knowledge work. We're going to be free of that, and so humans can move up the hierarchy of the value hierarchy to address um, the complex issues that machines can't do. Well, I think it's going to force us to be more creative and deal with all of the complex stuff like climate change. So I think AI is going to be a liberating force. There is a threat, no question about it. But I think the threat has been exaggerated. I don't think AI will ever become sentient. It will never have agency. That is, it won't be an independent uh, uh, force. It'll always be subject to human control. It can still be dangerous, of course, because it's going to have enormous power. But we will have to control AI. That's going to be one of our main jobs to monitor the systems and make sure that they're safe and that they do what we want. But we're going to be free to do stuff that the machines can't do. It's going to be good for humans.
I agree. There are many pros. Once again, there are also downsides to it. But the scary part for me is who programs the AI,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When individuals go into and they're in second grade and they type in the question that's on the test and it gives an answer that might be true, might not be true, but it's based off of whoever programmed that. They're going to take that as gospel. And so rather than do any type of research, they're just going to ask AI things.
Yeah,
That is going to be pretty scary
yeah,
if the wrong person is in control.
yeah.
And that's why bigger government always scares the hell out of me as who is the person behind the switchboard that's making all these rules. So what do you think is going to be the remedy, or what do you think is going to be the maybe the solution for that?
We're going to have to learn how to be more discriminating in what we believe. That's one of the challenges with social media. You know, people are just sucked into their own version of truth, and we have to teach young people how to discriminate between good sources of information, bad sources. We need we need systems that monitor the platforms and to let us know the amount of disinformation different systems are sending out, so we can discriminate. It's going to be tough to figure out truth from falsehood.
Right?
Yeah, and that's going to be a big challenge.
And I guess maybe this is going to be a trial and error aspect because there's going to be so many. I mean, this is just the beginning, right? I'm so thankful. I was born in 1984. I'm so thankful that I was born at this time in history to see this changeover. But also in 1984, we were basically the last generation to not have computers in our hands growing up. So I played in the woods, I played hockey on the street. It was awesome. Now kids are waking up and they're 4 years old, and these kids sometimes have a phone in their hand or an iPad in their hand right out of the gate. So, do you think this is? I mean, do you think it's a good thing for kids?
I think the young generation is very sophisticated. They're the first global citizens. Most of the kids in high school travel all over the world. They meet with people from other countries. They have the same culture. They share the same music, same clothes. You know, they're perfectly comfortable with people of different races, different genders. They're the first global citizens. They're the ones that we're counting on, I think, to figure out the new world. And you're right. I think it's a privilege to be alive at this time in history when everything's changing so dramatically. It looks terrifying, but I I think it's going to work out. My next book that I'm working on right now is called Omega Point. Omega Point was defined by the Jesuit anthropologist Teilhard de Chardin as the point at which the news you've heard of the noosphere. That's
I wanted to ask you about that noosphere, NOO sphere, right? I don't know much about that. I want to bring that up to my viewers too.
Teilhard was a visionary, and he saw that the information technology was increasing the role of thought, that the world is covered with this overlay of thought. And that's absolutely true. That's exactly what's happened. We got all this knowledge. We're all thinking constantly. We're living in our minds. And that he thinks is going to converge. I think it's going to happen about the year 2050, some kind of a unification. That's what I mean by global consciousness. See, the world unifies into a coherent whole, not a big government, but still autonomous. Well, enormous diversity, more diversity than ever, but working together some way that I don't think we can understand how, but I think it's going to converge about the year 2050.
So, I mean, there's a couple things we could probably jump into, but the one thing that scares me, but I think it's coming, is a universal basic income. Okay, so when I look at what's
Yeah.
happening in this world, I think it's a bad idea. Let me just throw that out there, but I believe it's coming. And the reason why is because fast food restaurants, all these labor jobs, like you said, AI is going to take over. There's no doubt about it. All right. If I was forced to say I need to pay somebody 20, 25 bucks an hour, or I'll buy a robot that's $250,000, but I never have to pay him again and works all day, every day for the rest of my life without any complaints, I'm just going to buy the robot. Right. So that's what's coming. And there's going to be a lot of people that are unemployed and they need to have some type of money, but there's going to be a great divide. In my opinion, truly entrepreneurial type people will benefit more than ever simply because some people will say, I'm going to take the path of least resistance and I'm just going to get the universal basic income. And then there are some people who think entrepreneurially and they are just going to reap insane rewards. So I see a great divide, rich, and ultra poor. That's my biggest fear, I guess. Do you see the same future?
Yeah, I feel the same way that you do about universal basic income. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think we're going to see mass unemployment. Uh, the I don't think we know exactly where the new jobs are going to come from, but they're going to come into this creative domain, this creativity that's freed up as we don't have to do the drudge work any longer. So I don't think we're going to see mass unemployment.
Okay.
That's that's always been the fear. When I was at Berkeley as a graduate student in the 60s or so, that's when automation started to take off. And there was the same fear. There was this terrible fear that we were going to have mass unemployment. Congress was trying to act on it. And in a few years, the economy boomed. Unemployment was down to absolute lows. I mean, you can't predict this stuff. And so it didn't happen then. It's not going to happen now. We just don't know where the jobs are. But they're
Got
going
it.
to be better jobs. They're going to be creative and they're going to force people to up their game. Ordinary people are going to have to find creative work that the machines can't do. And I think they will. I
Yeah.
think because the challenge, there's no end of the work. There's no fixed amount of work. The amount of work always expands. I mean, we're gonna be entering a space age in a couple of decades. What we're seeing now is just the beginning of a real space age, and that's going to just change everything.
So what you're saying, and this makes sense. I won't combat it at all because with new technology, there's new options, new availability. And so maybe because of my ability to say, hey, I'm going to work from home, I'm going to order my groceries from Uber Eats or from Instacart, right? So that wasn't available, but that new job was created because of technology. So if you are a hustler, if you're a worker, if you have some grit, you shouldn't fear the future at all because there will always be possibilities around you because of the new technology that individuals like entrepreneurs that have created Uber and all those type of companies, they're implementing day in and day out. So there will be new options in the future.
I think you're exactly right. Your instincts are right on target, I think. You grasp all this very well, I think.
Yeah, I think about it all the time because, as
Yeah,
an entrepreneur, you're always trying to plan the next move. It's like a chess game.
yeah.
Okay, what are these politicians talking about? How would that affect me? I need to play defense or I need to play offense. And you need to see the whole game. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's why I talk about it all the time. You start to become more aware of what are politicians saying? What are the new laws being passed? Well, if somebody's lying to you, how would I tell if they're lying? Wait a second, that person doesn't seem like they're all there. What are they saying? Let me do a little bit more of my research, right? You do more research and you start to think on your own a little bit more, and I think that makes you uncontrollable, and I love that aspect.
I think you're right. I think you're right. It's going to be a very different world, and we're going to have to um, really learn to live at a higher level of abstraction. Bigger ideas, creative thinking, globally, new industries, uh, new relationships with people. It's all changing dramatically. It's a great time to be alive, I think.
To me, the biggest existential threat is a nuclear war.
Yeah.
Now, with all this I believe, people always talk about going to war. I don't think we'll ever see troops on a boat going into a beach and all of a sudden they're running out again. It's going to be click of a button, right? It's almost like war games, if you remember that movie. I see it that way. So do you believe
Automatic weapons. It's all,
right? That's it.
yeah,
That's how it's going to be fought. If we get to that point, it's going to be ultra scary, but it's not going to be like what we've seen in 1969 and 1943, right? It's going to be totally different. So, do you agree that maybe that is the one thing that is the I mean, that's why we need to get along with these countries.
yeah.
And I see individuals out there creating the bricks and you see the people in our country destroying the dollar. You destroy the dollar and you build up the bricks, all of a sudden now you have two currencies. There's definitely going to be a war over which is going to be the ultimate currency, right?
Yeah, no, well, the threat of nuclear war is another reason why we need a global consciousness. We need to understand we're all in this together. We have to find ways to get along with these other nations. Uh, it just 50 years ago, the Germans and the Japanese were horrible. They were our enemies. And now they're among the most peaceful people on the planet. This changes. This change. The Nordic countries. They used to be the Vikings, the ruthless Vikings. They are now the most civilized people in the world. So all this changes. It changes, and it'll change. Russia is a big threat now, but the Russians are great people. It's a great culture. They're just stuck in this stupid autocracy, but that's not going to continue. And the same thing with Iran. The Persian heritage is so rich, so they're so competent. They're stuck in that stupid theology, but this can all change, and we have to encourage it by thinking globally. I think that's really the key. We have to stop thinking of our narrow self-interest. The present motivations of most people are self-interest, money, and power. That's what's creating the problem. We've got to start thinking of uh, globally, a global civilization. That I think is the key. And business, I think, could lead the way into that by demonstrating the power of collaboration. If they can really figure out how to work with their stakeholders to create more value for everybody, become more competitive, that they would demonstrate the power of collaboration.
Hmm.
That's a great accomplishment for business people.
And in chapter 10, I want to get to this because I saw this phrase and I'm like, I got to bring this up. But the flowering of human spirit, evolution's
Yeah,
climax.
yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by this? Because I thought
Well,
that I'm like, oh,
we got to start recognizing that human beings are more than just information systems. The AI people seem to think we're just information systems.
yeah,
Uh,
right.
if we're just information, sure, then the AI will replace us. But we're more than that. We have consciousness. We have agency. And I like to think of, put it in practical terms that are understandable. Human spirit, not gods or any of that stuff, just human spirit, that sense of awareness that we carry around. That's what we have to nurture, the human spirit. And that I think is going to triumph in time.
I get a sense that you are an Alan Watts fan. Are you an Alan Watts guy or a Carl Jung guy? You seem like you're in
I
that
don't even
world.
know who Alan Watts is, so I
You
can't.
don't know
Oh,
Alan Watts? Oh
no,
my
I
God, you would love him. You're
don't.
sharing a lot of his sentiment, especially the Buddhist approach.
Oh yeah, bro, yeah, yeah. No,
So look him up. Alan Watts, great communicator. Back in the day,
well,
I mean, he's been deceased for many years, but he was an amazing speaker, great philosopher. I don't know if he was a clinical psychologist, but I know Carl Jung was. Are you a Carl Jung guy?
yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
And,
the way
my views are not just optimism or altruism. I'm speaking as a scholar. I'm an academic, speaking as a scholar, and based on my study of social evolution, this is where the planet is taking us. And social evolution is bigger than any of us. The world is in charge. We're not in charge. The world is moving in its own way, and we're really kind of just passengers. That's what Buckminster Fuller would have said. We're passengers on spaceship Earth. Remember Buckminster Fuller?
no, I don't. I got to look him up now. You're
Yeah,
giving me some new
yeah,
names.
yeah.
Yeah. So, whenever it comes to um, the next few years here, when it comes to consciousness overall, people who do not adopt what you're teaching in this book, what happens to them? Give us your viewpoints on people who do not maybe get in touch with themselves, their true beliefs, morality, core values. What happens to them?
Well, look at Russia, for instance. Putin has done a terrible thing for Russia. It's become a backwater. They are a pariah around the world. They're not developing their talent. They have such well-talented people. They have some of the best educational levels in the world. But their intelligent people have no outlet for their intelligence, so they're doing hacking. I get about a half dozen cyber hacks on my website every day from Russians because they have nothing else to do. I mean, he's showing the dangers of not pursuing a global consciousness. It's become a backwater. Russia's become a backwater.
From what I gathered, though, his people love him, right? Is that
Well, they're sucked into the propaganda, and they're used to obeying authoritarian figures. But I don't think it's going to last. Navalny was the real voice of Russia, I think.
hmm.
The Russians are great people. They have wonderful courage. They're smart. They have great culture, and I'm looking forward to the time when they recover their senses and become a real a democracy and develop their talents. They could do great things.
When it comes to somebody out there listening or watching this, how could somebody get in touch with their consciousness? Is it based off of, you know, self-actualization, really identifying what really fuels you, who you really are inside? That's the way I define it. So, is there anything that you could share with our viewers when it comes to books to read or podcasts that will help them in addition to the book that you offer?
Well, I think meditation is a great thing. Meditation or mindfulness, it's was is the phrase that's being used today. That's a good place to start. It's not prayer. It's just uh, getting in touch with your reality.
Yep.
Just be paying attention to your body and your mind, what it's telling you, and to the world around you. Just being realistic to see the mystery that surrounds us every day, and trying to live up to it. And that's, I think, my best recommendation, a serious meditation.
And I've always said, if you ever listened to this podcast before, that I believe that the education system has a major role. And I believe if you go back to the genesis of the education system and maybe even the pharmaceutical world, Rockefeller, right? Rockefeller, you look into his history, not a really good guy, right? Even though I'm a capitalist and an entrepreneur at heart, he did a lot of bad things and he helped build this system. And I don't know if they're being educated in a way. Like he wanted to create a system of workers, not thinkers. So the school system to me could do an amazing job in waking people up. Consciousness to me is just being awake. But in order for you to be awake, you need to know the truth. For me to get out of school and then actually fall in love with personal development and reading, that's when I learned the truth. So is there anything that the school system can do that will help them become more conscious, in your opinion?
The challenge for the school system is to become student-centered instead of teacher-centered. Right now, it's teacher-centered.
Ooh, never heard that before.
Teachers are think their job is to teach, but you can't teach people. They have to learn for themselves. I think that's always been understood. And the new technology is going to make that possible, I think. Uh, AI is going to help uh, become, we're going to have sophisticated tutors that know everything about you, know what you do know, what you don't know, the instructions tailored to your needs. And the students have to be free to do their own learning, I think. And parents have to start by teaching kids to be independent and not to be sucked into the social media. What's happening to young people with social media is just terrible. Just
Totally.
terrible, especially girls.
Oh yeah, they're the ones being hurt the most. You're right. And
They're,
and maybe you share my belief that the future does look like it's going to be homeschooling or an individual being taught, like you said, through their phone, through their computer, and is not going to be going
oh,
to a
well,
classroom.
the role of the schools and universities will be to encourage people to find their own understanding, their own knowledge, rather than trying to teach them, but help them figure it out for themselves, I think. I'm getting a little hoarse, so I think I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I appreciate your time. Yeah, we're right at
it's
the
been
end
wonderful
anyway.
talking to you, Mike. This has really been exciting. You've
Yeah,
got
guys,
time.
guys,
You,
check out his book. I appreciate it. I'm glad you gave us a little bit extra time there. William Halal's book, Beyond Knowledge: How Technology is Driving an Age of Consciousness. Is there any other website or social media channel people can find you on and maybe reach out to you?
my website, billhalal.com, HALAL.com.
Beautiful. Guys, look him
And
up. He's
I've got a great newsletter that goes out every couple of weeks. I'm getting about 200 or 300 new subscribers every week, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah. All right. Interesting conversation. Guys, the future. Adopt the technology because it could set you free. And remember, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life right on.